Hi, and welcome back to Have You Seen My Film, a Kinema podcast. I am Christie Marchese. I do the interviews around here, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Kinema. Today, we chat with T.C. Johnstone. He is an award-winning filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, producer, director. He has produced multiple award-winning features and shorts, including Rising from the Ashes, which was executive produced by Oscar winner Forest Whitaker, and two of my favorites, The Power of Small and In the Dirt. But what we talk about in this episode is actually his Doc Film School, which equips working documentary filmmakers with business systems to build, fund, and release their own impact projects using a proven business model and a committed professional community. He has a lot of insights to give on how to do this on the business side, what his classes are like, and his perspective as a filmmaker. So let's get into it. All right. I am here with T.C. Johnstone, director, producer, and founder of Doc Film School. Hi, T.C. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Christy.
This is fun. I feel like I only get to run into T.C. at Sundance. We both were at Sundance last week and ran into each other at the Impact Lounge again for the second year in a row. And we started chatting about the films he'd worked on, are releasing, and I got a bit of an update on Doc Film School. So I want to dive into that, hear about the film school you started, why you started it, how filmmakers can engage. But first, could you please just tell us a little bit about yourself as a doc filmmaker, director, producer, and now founder of a film school?
Yeah. So my wife, Kristen, and I are business partners. We really specifically focus on impact documentary films. My wife, Kristen, and I, we live in Boulder, Colorado, and been doing this for about 25 years and found my niche somewhere about 17 years ago. We did a film called Rising from Ashes, and I just fell in love with this idea of using stories that were entertaining and educational and inspiring, but really focusing on how do we move audiences from just watching films to actually participating in a bigger story. And when I started seeing that, I was like, this is what I'm built to do.
It's amazing. Yes, I forgot you're in Boulder, which is where Sundance is headed next year. Are you excited for that?
Yeah. I mean, it's been kind of the last 8 months. There's been a lot of conversations. People are starting to look for venues, and I don't know that Boulder's really quite aware of what's coming, but in a good way.
Okay, good. I'm excited for Boulder, for the move to Boulder as like a refresh in a way of like, what's this next iteration of the film industry, getting kind of a fresh start in a different city. And even though they're both mountain towns, like I think it's going to be a real different vibe, right? Is there a ski town, or is there a place to ski in Boulder? Isn't it like 40 minutes away?
Yeah, there's a ski resort 45 minutes away. I think I'm kind of in the same position that it's a really cool town. What people don't know is that the food industry actually started here, clean food. So that in entrepreneurism, and you have a university, you just have a little bit more capacity. So I'm in the same place. I think where we are with the film industry and a fresh start with Sundance is a great thing.
It's so funny. We've been just talking to somebody about this, how it feels like we need to have a slow film movement in that we are in such a stage right now of social media where we get fast content. It's fast, it's cheap, it's not nourishing. It feels very much like fast food. And so we as consumers need to slow down our content consumption and be more thoughtful about where it's coming from and how we receive it and how we engage in it with others, not dissimilar from a food movement. And so we're very much promoting the slow film movement. And I think that also connects to how filmmakers, indie filmmakers go direct to audience, can slow down the release of their film to focus on different windowing. So once the film is done, what does it look like to go to do a theatrical or a non-theatrical or festival? And you have, I think, a lot of advice and guidance on this, and particularly doing non-theatrical and running your own screening tours. So can you give us just a bit more history on some of your recent films, short films, feature films, how you put them together and what those releases look like? You can talk high level or go give a specific example.
Yeah. I mean, so when we did that film Rising from Ashes, we did that one with Forest Whitaker, and it was at the time when there was a lot of opportunity it was just a traditional system. And so it was go to film festivals, hope for the best, and we did well. I remember the director of Sundance called us and said, I'm really struggling because I want to accept this film, but I can't. It just doesn't fit this year. And so we ended up moving down a level, and I think we did 12 film festivals and won 9 out of 12. And I knew we were probably in a very unique spot. And then all of a sudden, ironically, because of some of the topics within that film, I remember we were on a call with Sony and they said, we want to buy this film, but we just know we can't sell it. And I was like, okay. And so we were kind of in this unique spot. And so we ended up doing a year-long festival run. I think we did, 27 festivals. We, did that whole thing. I think we won 19 awards. I mean, it did really well. You'll actually appreciate this story. So we ended up in Paris with Forrest, and we were doing an impact screening at UNESCO. And this guy comes up to me and he goes, "You're an effing idiot. You're a fucking idiot." And I was like, "Who is this guy?" And it ended up, it was the director of Cannes. And he said, he said, "Why didn't you submit this film to my film festival?" And ironically, it comes back to the impact side of things, is that when we finished that film, the entire team lining up to that was so committed to impact that they didn't want to hold for an industry type of thing. So as a filmmaker, I wanted prestige, they wanted impact. And I ended up, submitting to them and falling in love with it. But that film then led to kind of that, I don't know, a little bit of a come to Jesus, because I had to realize that what did I really want? And my business mentor said, "TC, what do you want out of this career?" And I said, "I really love it when I see things really change, big problems or things that are going on in society. I like to see real social movements in that." And they said, "Well, go do that." And then when a film comes along that fits into the traditional model that can go to Netflix and do those things, do that. If it doesn't, just pivot. So that really changed the way we started to develop films. So, I was just at Sundance, a guy pitched me an idea and it was really good. And ironically, the first thing I go to now is, okay, is this going to be Kinema? Is this going to be traditional? And I just think about it that way. But I'm thinking, how are we going to serve the audience in the best way?
I think that is like some of the best advice we can give anyone. I was just chatting with some friends who are launching a show. And like, we have to remember this is in service of the audience. Like, you have a story to tell, you have a perspective, you have an artistic lens. It is coming from inside, but ultimately it's for other people. And so trying to bridge that gap. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I guess, where were you in kind of your film journey, where you decided to put all of your learnings into a program to help inform other filmmakers? What did starting Doc Film School look like?
Yeah. So what I started to realize after Rising from Ashes, I realized that I was starting at zero again. Even though I had more connections, I had opportunity. It's a longer story, but I really wanted to be a filmmaker. And so I started at zero. And then we did Teen Press, and that was a 30-minute film, an impact film on education. And then we did one called Dealmakers. And then we did one called Red Horizon that was on race and aviation and all these different things. But what I was learning through that process is that I was building systems. And that was the part nobody told me was important. So I understood how to make films. I'd put my 10,000 hours into directing and learning lighting and aperture and all those different things. But what I didn't understand is that you have to approach this as an entrepreneur if you really want to create social impact. And I don't even care if it's social impact. I think if you want to be successful in film as a doc filmmaker, you have to kind of take that posture. What I didn't realize is that we were building these systems and tools all along the way. And then when things started to collapse and transition in Hollywood, the old system was changing. We had just kind of built this thing. And so as all my friends were going, "I'm struggling, I don't have work and it's not working anymore," we weren't feeling the pain. So we were just cruising through it and everything was great. Then all of a sudden people started calling, and I was spending 15, 20 hours a week with people kind of sharing tools and ideas. And I just had to systematize it. So what Doc Film School really is, it's very specific to impact documentary filmmaking, but it's like an MBA. It's a business course. We don't talk about lighting or interviews or any of that. It's 8 systems that lead into kind of systematically, repeatedly being able to really efficiently get docs made. And so it starts with an idea, and how do you kind of think through that idea through a set of filters that allow you to think about, okay, what is this for? How are we going to serve the audience? How are we going to, is this a viable idea? But then moving it into development. And what a lot of filmmakers I started seeing was they were just dumping all this money and time into that. And I was like, you should be paid for that. And they said, well, where'd you get that idea? And I said, well, Hollywood does that all the time. You do a development deal so that you actually have time and energy to like focus on being creative and also working out the business hurdles that are going to be in there. Then you get to do what you get to do, which is pre-production, production, and post-production, actually storytelling. And then you jump into marketing, distribution, and impact. So we just broke all those 8 phases up of the business side of it and made it very practical with the tools and templates to be able to actually apply it. But what was surprising for people was how much work people would come into this thing and go, wait, why do you spend so much time in the development phase on distribution and marketing? And I said, because who cares if you make something that nobody ever sees? And we actually talk about Kinema and everything else on our, like, it's taught in the course. Like, here's your 4 options. Because we have so many arrows in our back. We've tried everything. We've done all this different stuff. And Kinema works great. And so do some of these other things. But if you're really focused on impact, what I started to see was that I wanted a relationship with my audience. And you're not going to get that through these other platforms. And that all of a sudden stirs up a whole other set of questions is, well, what would a relationship with an audience look like? And I was like, well, let's talk about it. So when we started teaching that system, all of a sudden, what we started to find was filmmakers were moving really fast through things and they were getting things accomplished. I mean, we've got filmmakers that, they'll raise development funds in 14 days.
Oh, geez, that's impressive.
Yeah, it's because they have this really good idea, but they didn't know how to systematically write a log line and a summary and create a one page and then pitch their idea in an efficient way and invite people into a bigger story. And when they did it, people were like, yeah, why didn't you just tell me that? I would love to participate in that. Then they had time, once they had raised some development money, to really dive into a project proposal, which is something that's different than we get, oh, let me send you my pitch deck. I was like, I don't give a shit about your pitch deck. What's the business plan? And, what's your target audience? Sorry, I get really excited about this.
No, you are nailing so much. Like, I'm like so grateful. You're saying this so wonderfully and concisely, and you're clearly a good storyteller. I just want to interject to be like, yes, it's, I think it was Brian Newman that said this in one of his newsletters, like the independent film is like the only industry, the only type of business in the world where we make the product and have zero plan for it afterwards. We spend all of it's like if you were to work in a spoon industry and you spend all your time making the spoon and just wait for someone to come find it. Like what you've put together is so incredibly innovative and revolutionary for filmmakers who don't have access to this. And this is the first time actually hearing that filmmakers should get paid for development. And so that's new to me. So it'll probably be new to other people too.
Well, it's so funny, Christie. I shot a project like 25 years ago. Somebody found that I had this footage 6 years ago. He said, hey, can I use this footage in my doc? And I was like, yeah, we'll talk about it when you get your doc done. 7 years later, this week, he sends me an email and says, hey, I want to license that footage. Here's the kicker. I wrote him back and I said, perfect. Yeah, let's do it. Send me over the contracts. And I said, by the way, I'm reading this from our email. I said, what are you doing for distribution on this thing? And he literally wrote back, no idea, emoji with laughing with tears coming out. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Oh.
And I'm going, what are you doing? And I was like, those tears are not going to be smiley faces in 7 months from now.
Oh, they're going to be real sad face emoji tears.
I just get that email all the time. And that's why, all the pieces are now on the table. It's just a big puzzle. But what Doc Film School is basically the box. So you're not just flying blind.
No, it's brilliant. And so it sounds like if all filmmakers who are doing documentary and impact-oriented filmmaking, because as you said, it's tailored specific to that. Should you be doing Doc Film School when your film is just an idea in your head? If it's, you're already past development, if you're, you finished the film and you don't know what to do with distribution, what is the best time to come in? And is there any time that's too late to come in?
No, the perfect customer for us is somebody who has an idea and hasn't done anything yet, that is trying to figure out how to build the house. They haven't written the blueprint yet. We always talk about it as a house. And I'm going, you have a house. Now let's get into who's going to live in it, which is your audience. And how are you going to design it to serve them? And if you don't do that, you probably are going to hit some problems later. If you want to be an artist and you have a trust fund or whatever, go do whatever you're going to do. But I don't have either one of those things, but I built a career. We have no debt. I live in Boulder on 2 acres. I live in a cabin. We have the lifestyle we want, but I've made it doing films because of this system. And I don't make millions of dollars a year, but I get to do what I love, and that matters. If that's what you want, we're a great fit. You bring up something really interesting. I was with a filmmaker the other day, and I said, what do you want? And he said, TC, I know it's vain, but I want a Netflix deal because I don't have validation. And I said, well, I have a little bit of news for you. That doesn't validate you anymore. It used to. Sundance doesn't even validate you anymore. I mean, you and I know that all those films, there's so many films that go there and the filmmaker's still struggling for 2 or 3 years financially, or you go to the Oscars, those guys aren't even making any money. So what do you want?
Very good point. I hadn't thought about that in terms of validation. It used to be in terms of money, of like, oh, maybe I will make my money back if I get the Netflix deal. And I think now we know that most of the streaming platforms, while there have been some sales, the offers have really, really dialed back in the last few years for budgetary reasons, for them saying that the audience isn't there in the same way, for a shift to true crime. There's a million reasons why, but the input is what they're offering is not what the cost or the value of these films or series are. So it's interesting you say validation, and I get that. I mean, we talk to people a lot. They want to have that logo. The logo means something in the industry, and we built the industry that way so that when that pre-roll of that Paramount or the Netflix end, like it means something to an audience, A24, then it means something to the filmmaker. So I understand it. I hope that, I mean, I don't know how you see this, but I look at it as what's the filmmaker's logo that goes before. That's the stamp of the story that you're about to get. So how do we have this shift from outside validation to shift more towards like inside validation? And I think what we've seen from consumers and audiences, they watch a lot of stuff online, and that is not validated by Instagram. It's not validated by Netflix. These are true creators just releasing stuff direct to audience, and they've proven that there is a market for it.
Well, and I think what it's done, and I'm not against, I mean, I want them to keep doing what they're doing, because when I sit on my couch and turn on television, I want good stuff, and they make great stuff.
True.
And so if we make something that fits those logos and those systems, great. But oftentimes we get pitched a project that I just want to make. I know there's an audience because we've done the research, but it's not necessarily going to fit those. And I've kind of come to a place where I'm like, that's okay. For every 3 films that I'm passionate about, some of them, I know there's an audience because of our systems. We can find that out. And I'm a huge fan of AI. I mean, it's such a great tool for finding audiences, getting data. We say we're creatively driven, but data infused, and inspired. It's like the data tells the truth. What's measured grows. And so we measure everything.
I think sometimes people get lost of like, okay, what does it mean to have a relationship with your audience? What does it mean to look at data? Is data understanding a map of where demographics are? And I think those demographics make sense for my film. Is it running ads and seeing traffic? Can you give me, a high level of like, what is the data that you look at either for film school or on a per film basis?
Yeah. Well, one is like the hard data that I would look at. So like we have this very niche film we just did called Untethered. And it's about a guy who invented a pediatric wheelchair that can grow with you over time. He's an innovator. He's like the Yoda of wheelchairs. I don't know anything about wheelchairs, but when we, started doing the story, I was like, this is going to be a very niche audience of people that really want to know that they're not alone, and they want to know that there's solutions to these bigger problems. So we didn't generalize it, but when we did the release of that film, even though the numbers were in the thousands, I think it was like we did a free virtual screening on the first weekend, which for 48 hours, there's multiple reasons for that. One is that, I think 3x'd our database in that. So we have direct relationships with them, but they're also signing up for community screening. So why wouldn't I give it to them for free? But that 2,000 people are evangelists. We think about it as a target. And it's like in the center these are our diehard friends. These are the people who are going to tell their friends, share it with their friends, buy it for a friend. Then outside of that is you have people who are interested, or connected. Maybe they have a disabled cousin or something like that. And then you keep going out. And on the outside of that is your consumer. I don't really care about those people. We teach that they take 5% of my energy. I am not interested in you, that you're just not my consumer if you're not our customer. And I'm okay with that, So why would I tailor something to something that I'm not trying to convince you of anything.
Yeah.
But
so
I'd like to tell you about something
center.
if I hear of something.
Okay. So you're saying like you're focused on the center.
For the first 6 months.
For the first 6 months, you're focused on those 2,000 people or 1,000 people. What's the marketing saying? The 1,000 true fans. If you can find them, those, as you said, become your evangelists.
100%.
And so so if someone's joining film school, like what does the film school look like? You said I think it's 8 different courses. Is it an online class they can take on their own time? Do they join a cohort? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can jump in at any time. That's the great thing. And so it's self-guided through 135 components, and it has all the tools in there. So just the downloads are probably worth 10 grand because you get case studies, but you also get everything from your email templates to send out to your audience, to website links, to you don't have to figure out what's the difference between, say, Kinema and Vimeo OTT, because we've used them all. So we know, I can tell you, here's what you're going to run into. So just that time saver of that. So you just walk through it. And then we have a call every other week. And that community is probably the big benefit for a lot of filmmakers. They just feel alone. And so I built it off this idea of Mr. Beast. Is when he got started, He said, I would study for 7 hours. I was in basically a cohort of 10 people. And every morning we'd get up and you'd have 10 minutes to share what you learned in the last 7 hours. So my compounding interest of education went through the roof. And I was like, well, why don't we do that? So on our calls, it's the same thing. You have 25 filmmakers that are all doing this at the same time. But I've never been on. Last week, it was crazy. Somebody said, we want homework. And I was like, what? I was like, okay.
Adults want homework? We just got away from that.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in sharing about Doc Film School with filmmakers, because I think being a platform, we see what works well. We look at the data and we can kind of compare films. We don't publish a lot of this because we truly believe each film's data is their data. It's their story. We can see from the information we gather on the outside is those with a business strategy, those who understand kind of windowing out or elongating their film's release, those that work with an impact producer, those that are very clear about their goals and intentions, whether it's validation through the industry, making impact, making money. They are far more successful than the other films who have just kind of didn't make a plan ahead of time. And not that they can't achieve some success, but you just see a vast difference. So I want to hear a little bit more about Doc Film School, but taking a step back and looking at the industry, what are some of the myths that you see in the film industry or that filmmakers believe that you want to bust right now or that you bust in Doc Film School?
The first, I would say there's three. The first one that it's hard to raise money. The money's dripping off trees. You've just got to be able to communicate your idea in a way that people with funding understand. And being clear and concise and being able to communicate well is half the battle. So having tools that help you do that, that'd be the first one. The second thing is that somebody's going to care about your film as much as you are. You have to market your film. I just was on a call yesterday and I told this filmmaker, you're raising money, but I know how this works. You're going to put all the money into the film and then you're going to neglect marketing and distribution. And I said, I just said marketing. And he said, well, what does that look like? And that'll probably lead to the third thing is your life matters. Like as a filmmaker, some people want the art to speak for them. What I've learned is that people want to get to know the artist. So treat your marketing and your social and all these different things as if you're talking to some friends about your experience with the story. Let them live through your lens. You're going to show them that anyway. So just build it that way. So it takes just make it simpler. It doesn't have to be so complicated. And then with Doc Film School, a lot of it is even with budgets. I mean, we just put up a case study on our YouTube channel about Untethered. And I said, everybody wants a Hollywood budget. And I was like, those things are so complicated. You can do it with an Excel sheet. It doesn't have to be, all our tools are so simple. They just all work together and they move projects forward really, really fast. So when we make a documentary, and somebody told us the other day, they said from idea to distribution was less than a year. I was like, yeah, because we're really efficient. Because I was like, the lights are still on in my house. I still have to pay the bills. So the more efficient I am, the better. And so I wouldn't treat my business that way. I would treat my business as a business that has to be efficient, well communicated, well oiled, has great employees, treats people really well. We create a culture. I mean, I knew what Kinema was. I've never told you this actually. I knew what Kinema was at Mountain Film. And I'd read about it. I'd seen these things. And you came into a panel discussion and you just got back from a hike and you took off your shoes and you sat on the ground. And I was like, that's what Kinema is. It's a relationship with your customers that you really care about. And you're not trying to put up smoke and mirrors. The product is what it is, but you're going to be cared about and you're going to be somebody that is not a customer. You're actually a partner with us because we want your film to succeed, not just from a business side, but because you understand filmmakers. And I knew that because it's easy to put on a show and the glitz and glam, and you didn't do any of that. That's a different posture for a company. And that's what we've said with your marketing. Do the same. Be authentic, be yourself. People will be interested in what you're up to if you're nice and kind and all those things.
Oh man, that's so cool. I remember chatting with you about in film. I didn't remember that part of it. Thanks for sharing that. I think everything you said is so brilliant in that last question. I kind of want to leave it at that. Just the 3 points that you made are so so true. And so I really encourage people to check out Doc Film School. Again, if you're a documentary filmmaker and focused on impact. So I guess TC, the last thing I'll ask you is, how can filmmakers or how can anyone find you or Doc Film School online to connect?
Yeah, I'm going to interject because I want to say this real quick. So in the last, 7 or 8 years, the problem has been, how do we get our films on a transactional platform that people can watch them and we can direct it to them so it's easy for them to find and easy for them to watch and share and do community screenings. And we have literally gone through every iteration of this. But as a filmmaker first and, creating an educational platform second, I have 50 things we all do. I need to learn about distribution. I have to tell a good story. I have to build a team. I've got to raise money. I've got all these different things. I need a simple solution to a problem. And so when we started to see that people were addressing that, and I'm not plugging Kinema, it's something we believe in. It's that we started trying all these different platforms. We've literally used every distribution platform that's out there. And what people don't realize is when you have your film on a platform that allows you to have the data and the relationship with the audience is one thing. An easy way for your audience to be able to watch your film is very, very hard and can be overwhelming for a lot of filmmakers. And Kinema kind of answers that in a way that's very practical. What most people don't know is your background. And they don't understand that you've been in this space. You understand the industry probably better than 99% of people I meet. And so it's just not a product. It's a culture of people who have built it from the ground up. And I think that's really, really important for people to understand, because you can spend a lot of time going, well, I can get it a little cheaper here. And I was like, you get what you pay for, guys. I say that all the time to filmmakers. If you want to go somewhere where you're going to get a quality product, you're going to have to pay for it. But you have to consider your headaches. And most filmmakers end up with a lot of headaches because they're trying to nickel dime something. And I'm like, you're not seeing the forest in spite of the trees. I preach that all the time. So I can't thank you enough for creating the solution, but also it just keeps iterating and getting better. And there's not that many solutions like that out there for doc filmmakers, especially impact doc filmmakers, where the founders of a company actually came from that arena where they know the genre. I mean, your experience with impact documentary, you could have a whole consulting. You probably do have a consulting business.
Not anymore.
in those areas. Yeah.
So we like to recommend other people who are focused on that.
But when you're looking at films and you're designing things, the designer it's so nice to know that somebody's coming from that space. It's not like, some tech person who doesn't understand our industry. It's like you all were in it before you even built the product. That's rare.
Thank you. No, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this is too many kind words. People are going to think I'm plugging you in on the podcast.
No, I want people to know that like you're providing a solution to a system, and we don't see Kinema as a product. We see it as a partner. And so when we look at Doc Film School, when we endorse things, it has to work or our product suffers. You asked me a question earlier, and I'll just throw this out there, is that our ideal customer is somebody who has put in their 10,000 hours, who has an idea and is ready to start with a strong foundation to build success and to be financially viable, to build projects with meaning, and actually are committed to serving their audience and creating impact and starting early. If they've got a product that, a lot of filmmakers call us and say, I just need the impact side. I just need the distribution side. I just need and I said, that's great. But you have to realize you're bolting on something to your film that may not be designed for it. And so you just have to understand that it will work. It's just you're going to have to make some concessions in the process. It's all application based. So it's like we're really protective of our community. So it's like we just have a no jerk policy. So it's like you have to really fit and really want to do the right thing.
Oh, dude, we have a good humans only policy. So I think it's actually written. And so if you guys dig into our terms and conditions, there is a caveat that if you are an asshole to members of our team, that goes against our policy and we have the right to remove you. So we build that in.
Yeah. And you can get to Doc Film School and see it all. I mean, we don't put a lot of time into branding or marketing or any of that. I mean, we just tell the story, and it's docfilmschool.com. And you can dive in, you can look at, there's little pieces to the course. You can go to our YouTube channel. There's a ton of little pieces. You kind of, with YouTube, you get the puzzle pieces, you don't get the box, because that takes commitment. And, we don't really work with people who argue about price. They understand value. And so those type things kind of separate.
No, you do. It allows you to curate. We find that also even just having a small price point, yes, there's costs that we have to cover. There's streaming costs. We got to pay into AWS and the powers that be at those tech companies. But we also found it's a hurdle. Like, it is how you have to, like, a small amount of skin in the game. We know filmmakers already have so much skin in the game and they've already put so much into it. I understand. But when it comes to this phase of it, if there's found that anything that's too free or too easy just has poorer outcomes because there isn't as much intention or time put on it. And it sounds like you treat the course very similarly. If someone's really invested in having their film be successful as a business, whether the business of impact, it's return on inspiration or return on impact or return on investment, whatever that ROI is, you can help provide them a course to get there. So TC, you have said some amazing things. So what's one last thing you want to say?
Thank you. That's it. I mean, you're providing solutions that weren't there, and you're educating people and your resources and everything. I mean, if you haven't looked on y'all's website, I mean, there's so much there that is very helpful. So thanks for all y'all do.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, this is part of it. We get to talk to amazing practitioners and creatives and filmmakers in this space. And I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge, not just in the form of coursework, but here. And thank you. So we'll share the links in the bios and in the descriptions as well for your YouTube. And it's docfilmschool.com.
That's it.
Cool. TC, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And that's our episode. Thank you to our special guest, our producer and editor, Ron Pissarro, and you, the filmmakers, creators, marketers, and distributors that are dedicated to connecting audiences with great films.